Hey everybody, Jay Weidner here, Reality Check. Thanks for watching. Want to apologize to everybody for not doing any shows. May is probably the toughest month of the year for gardening and doing a lot of lifting and shoveling. I've got chickens now, and but my garden's a pretty big success. I'm really happy with it, and so anyway, that's why I've been gone. I'll be doing a lot more shows now that I'm back off from the garden a little bit for the next couple of months. And, then next time I get busy, it'll be during harvest and on late September. Before we go on with the show, you guys asked me to recommend you some books. So here's another one from the Sacred Science Institute. It's called The Law of the Cosmos. It was written about 100 years ago, and it's filled with all sorts of juicy sacred geometry, layouts, and it's just a really good book about number and sacred geometry, and I highly recommend it. I've read that probably 5 times. All right, so today we're doing something a little bit different. We're going to be, as you guys know, one of the themes that I have on this show is that alchemy is there's laboratory alchemy, there's spiritual alchemy, there's all sorts of alchemy. But the alchemy that I study is based on the collection, the concentration of ether or prana or chi or plasma or orgone. They're all the same thing, describing this ocean that we work and live in. And the reason that we find the ancient buildings so beautiful is because that was their purpose. Their purpose wasn't to be architecturally beautiful, although they were. Their purpose was to draw down the ether and then concentrate it down into the house and into the bedrooms and where people ate and celebrated and things. And because remember, this is a time when doctors were hacks. You couldn't study anatomy. The church had outlawed it. So there were no doctors, not really. There were herbalists, usually women out in the country where they knew what they were doing, but there really weren't many doctors. And so you had to create a healing space in order to stay healthy. And today, our architecture is really malfunctioning. We now put steel 2x4s in our high-rise buildings. That creates all sorts of electromagnetic interference. Glass and steel are probably the worst things in the world for humans to live in and work in. But even our homes are really dysfunctional. They're not built right. And one of the purposes of me kind of telling all of this is that what I hope happens is that people in the future begin reconstructing the places where they live and work in a more sacred way, in a way that brings down these energies and enlivens the spirit and creates an atmosphere of less mental illness too. It's not just physical illness. We're also dealing with a high degree of mental illness right now. And a lot of that has to do with the radioactive cosmic rays coming in, frying everybody's brains. And like I was saying to my guest before the program, it's my feeling that women are actually being much more charged by these crazy rays than men. Men are still going crazy, don't get me wrong, but just women are more sensitive to it. So you got to do things in your life to protect yourself right now. And we don't live in a society where we give any credence to the idea that there's ether or these other forces. In fact, right before Einstein came out with his theory of relativity, they did a series of experiments that they think disproved the ether, but they didn't. It was just a fault in their experiments that they don't want to face. But the ether is real, it does exist. And so the question becomes, okay, so I'm screwed, I'm living in my apartment, and the materials that were used were not really sacred materials. The geometry isn't safe, it's just a square, which is actually kind of the worst place to live in, by the way. So what do we do? And the answer comes with my guest today. I want to introduce you to her. This is Michelle Hood, and she is the owner of Lite the Light Pyramids. LiteTheLight.com, right, Michelle?
Yes. And thank you, Jay. Thank you.
You bet. So, Michelle, you make these things, these absolutely beautiful, you're surrounded by them right now in your room. You've given me some of these, which are just absolutely amazing. Look at this, like a plate. My cat sleeps on this one.
That was for your cat. Cats love those.
They do. And then here's the mama of all. Look at that. I love the BBs in the bottom. And just check that out. I mean, so what that does is, well, you tell me what it does, Michelle. What's the point of you constructing these beautiful objects? Is it just because they're beautiful?
Well, first I want to say that for me, this is a huge honor and privilege because I hold you in such high regard, as the people who know me best would attest to. So thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I've been interested in frequency for a long time, and alchemy, which is how I first saw your name back in the mid-2000s. I was researching alchemy books because things had happened in my life. And in 2011, I had heard about these things called orgonite, which is the slang term. It's not the official term.
Right.
And that they were throwing them in the ocean and the dolphins were coming. So I realized there was something harmonic, earth-centered going on here. And I went for about a year. I studied because just like my pyramids look, I'm kind of I want to do it right. I'm very precise. And I thought, if I'm going to do this, I want to make them beautiful so that even people who didn't even know what it was might want them in their house, and they would get the benefits without having to be an expert or research anything. They would just intuitively know and like it. So everything can be made pretty anyway. It's nice to make things nice, no matter what.
Well, I'm a firm believer in that the purpose of art is to create beauty and cause a transformation within the person viewing the art, whether it's music or sculpture. Alex Gray once told me, I made a documentary with Alex Gray called Art Mind years ago, 2001 we made it, right after 9/11, and in New York City. And he said that he went to go see the movie The Exorcist when it came out, and he saw how everybody was so terrified by the movie. And so he started thinking about it, and he said, well, I mean, if art can cause that to happen, then it should be able to cause the opposite to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so he devoted his life to making beautiful paintings that, you know, reverberate in the soul. If you've ever been to his museum there in Woodstock, it's like there's no cathedral that can compare to, you know, the feeling that you get when you're surrounded by so much beauty. And I think that that's, you know, the real essence of happiness is truth, beauty, and love. And that's what everyone should really be trying to spread across the world. And so ugly art, you know, I just can't do it. I can't do ugly art. I can't do modern art. Just can't do it. Just doesn't resonate with me.
No, I don't want any ugly art in my house. So I agree. Mark Rothko is my favorite. Actually.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I had heard he played classical music blasting while he did his art. And for me, they resonate. There's such a frequency coming off of his paintings. I find them stunning. And like that for the pyramids I make, I only work when I'm in a good space. When if I'm grumpy, or which happens to all of us, I don't touch them. So, because to me, these are sacred. I'm making these for my future lives and the future lives of all creation, which initially I started this because I felt there was an assault on all creation, which turned out to be right.
Yes.
So there you go. So that's why I made these. I made these for the birds and the bees. And I know that humanity is a big factor and we're very powerful, and we have kind of lost our stewardship. So maybe having Orgone Energy, which is a harmonic earth frequency amplified, and I'll add crystals, create dimensional windows. So their frequency, they're transmitters and receivers from the higher dimensions. And which, I believe the earth uses them bring in from the higher dimensions. Anyway, that's my feeling.
That's right. That's exactly right. And that, as Wilhelm Reich, the guy who the first discovered orgone, he would see breaks in the dimensions when he'd be running his orgone accumulators. And he would see like plasma balls coming through from the sky. And one time, and he was collecting so much orgone through his experiments, at one time he was in his lab and the lights went out on a power outage. And he looked down and he saw his skin and it was all starting to turn blue and glowing in the dark. And blue is another whole color that people, it's actually the rarest color in nature. Once you remove the blue sky, there's really not many things that are blue, and blue is a very special thing. And I think that orgone has a bluish tinge to it because of its place in the light spectrum. So what Reich discovered, and died in jail because of this discovery, by the way, what he discovered was that humans are orgone accumulators also, and that through certain practices you can build up huge amounts of this prana, chi, orgone, whatever you want. And but him being a scientist, he had to find machines to do it. And I like your method a lot better, this kind of passive orgone accumulator. I put these all over my garden, by the way. I've got them everywhere. And I swear to God, if I put these in a box, I have boxes. If I put these in the center of one of the boxes, that box does the best in growing.
It is true. I am doing it for my garden, and I've wanted to do a garden for a while, but Jay, because of you, I created a garden this summer, and I love my garden. I meditate in my garden. I play harp music in my garden.
Nice.
No phones. And I put, when the plant isn't doing well, I have like pyramids that aren't great. So I put them in there next to a plant, and a couple weeks later, the plant is doing fine.
Yeah.
So
I just got a tomato plant that was dying. It was like, oh my God, it's dying. I grew it from seed, and I really care about it and all that. And I think it was this guy.
Mm-hmm.
So you're right next to it. About a week later, it was back to 3-4 inches tall again and growing. And so this is the thing that we need to do, is we're in this dystopian, society right now where literally everything is falling apart. Literally. Supply lines are dying. Farmers are being driven out of business. Food prices are rising. Gas is going to hit $4 a gallon here soon, probably $5 before the end of summer. And people are more and more at home. And so I'm thinking this is like a great opportunity. I mean, if you're stuck at home, then you can now start growing your own food, do like I do and grow your own chickens and get as many eggs as you can. And then populate your house with these things, right? Populate your entire house with as many of these kind of sacred objects that you can, because that's what's going to get you through the next 3 or 4 years, because it's going to be 3 or 4 years. I'm actually convinced that we're not going to come out of this dystopian thing. Well, there's the eclipse in April 2024, the total eclipse, which is the end of the 7-year ritual that began with the total eclipse in 2017. And that's a ritual about the United States. And because those are the total eclipses happened in the United States. So the United States is going to reach some kind of closure in like 3 years, but it's not going to end. And it's going to still take about another year. I'm looking at like maybe the end of 2025 before finally some calmness returns. So that's why it's really vitally important for you to get these things and surround them, because you're going to need it. It's going to get wild and crazy over the next 3 or 4 years. Things are going to happen that you're not even going to believe. We're living in a world where as Cliff High says, woo is being unleashed. And woo is anything that the normies reject. So if a normie rejects something, then that immediately becomes woo. When the normies accept something, it's no longer woo. So what's going on right now is we've got ET revelations going on, and we have revelations about that thing that bothered us all in 2020 was actually really was made in a lab. And it really was made, all the conspiracy people were actually really right about that. And a lot of this stuff is just going to start coming out, and you're going to get flipped out. And here's the thing is, you're not going to get as flipped out as your normie friends. So it's actually going to be up to you to tell your normie friends about these kinds of things, like the Light Pyramids, so that your normie friends can calm down too, because they're the ones that are going to freak out the most in the coming dystopian craziness that we're going into. And I'm not the bearer of bad news. I'm like the guy that tells you that the bridge is out. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to help you. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to do this show, is because I noticed that when I started putting these all over my house, that the whole vibe of the house changed. I put on ocean. I got Pandora, so I'll put the ocean sounds on, or rain, and try to create as calm an atmosphere as you can, because your house is your sacred space, and it's the most sacred space you have, and you've got to have a refuge, and it's got to be a refuge that has a payoff for you. And so, Michelle, you decided to create Orgone around you. Did you study some of Reich's work or anything?
I did. I am super, I don't want to say, anal, but I'm a very precise person if I'm going to do something. So I read his books. They were brutal, the ones with the research, and I got the gist of it. But I did read them. I read 2 books. I have 3 sitting here, which are really interesting. He did a lot of unique books. In fact, he has a whole book someone gifted me on his UFO research,
right,
which, that I was going to bring over, but it's around the corner. I want to go back to the blue. Can I read the blue?
Yeah.
In December, I was in Sedona doing it at a woman who's fantastic on her table, and I had a vision. And I know they're interesting because I couldn't have come up with it myself. And I was in space, and I was looking at the planet, and it was like this blue aurora borealis, like a royal blue, a cobalt blue, misty aurora borealis came around the planet. And then the planet was spinning, stopped, rotated, and it was very difficult, like a screech, about 90 degrees, and then snapped back. And then I just saw a lot of water. I'm not saying it's a tsunami. It could be emotions, but something is definitely happening to the planet. And there is blue involved. I know it now. So I wanted to just get that in. But yes, I read Reich's books, and a lot of people, it's hard to get good information online. There's a lot of people making pyramids, and they just copy. In the internet, you can't even get to the real source anymore. You just get to somebody's version that everybody copied. And I wasn't the first person to come up with the pyramids. There was a lady, Carol Croft. It was Dawn and Carol Croft in 2000. And she thought, let's put crystals in and see how this goes. And they were making these and gifting them to forests that had been burned, and the forests were growing back 3 times faster. So it was interesting to me. I was at the time in 2011 always tapping for the sonar, because all the whales, which we don't hear about, I'm sure that it's happening, but we get so much of nonsense and so little information. So I was invested in frequencies, and that's how I started on this. Other people's pyramids may work as well. I just want to say, and you can make Orgone yourself. And I would like to suggest people go to a thrift store, buy something pretty, a silver-plated tray, and put some crystals on it. So it's the layering of organic and inorganic materials. And when I talk about Orgone, what is it? In the layering of organic and inorganic opposites, I imagine the yin and yang symbol. It's got motion to it, so it creates an energy. Just those, like the opposite magnet and positive, there's that energy. It's the same thing. It's all man, woman, because Reich founded this. It was inspired based on the orgasm, which people love to talk about, but which is very powerful. you know, that creates a lot of energy, can create life. That's huge. So yes, did I answer that properly?
Yeah, yeah. He was. It was kind of an amazing guy because well, he wrote a book on fascism, which is just one of the best books he wrote, and he said
Yes.
that in societies where people are not allowed to show affection, there you go, there you go, where people are not allowed to show affection for each other in public, that creates this the anti-orgone, D or orgone D or de-orgone, and that
Yeah.
when sexuality is allowed to be expressed freely, then that creates an orgone field around people.
Yeah.
And we know, like in Tantra, you know, that in ancient India, there were legends of the Tantra couple that were in a village, and you know, marauders were coming towards the village, and I don't know if these are true or not, but these are the legends. The Tantra couple would go into their act, and they could make the whole village disappear. And the riders would race right by it and not see it, because they had so much power within the tantric act. And of course, in tantra, you're not supposed to have an orgasm because that increases the field or the chi. So I don't think Reich understood Eastern ways of looking at sexuality because they really weren't pervasive during his time. And we're fortunate enough to have that now. So there is a link between it. If you look at the desertification of the Middle East, you know, it rises right at the same time that the Middle East religions are outlawing the open showing of affection. So, you know, when women have the burqa on and everything is bound, that like causes the opposite of orgone. Plants begin dying, and you have desert growing. This also, by the way, plays into the King Arthur myth, because King Arthur is the king and he's married to Guinevere. And when they're in love, the kingdom flourishes. But then Guinevere falls for, what's his name? Forget his name now.
Lancelot.
Yeah,
Lancelot.
Lancelot. There you go. He falls for Lancelot and the kingdom dies, right? Until Guinevere and Arthur reunite again at the end. And then everything starts growing and everything. And we also know from John Michel's work that if you look at a farmer, you'll see that the plants around a loving couple are better. As the plants and the crops go outward away from the house, they don't grow as well. So even the orgone can be created just by love. So it's probably my favorite subject because it's really the basis of all alchemy, really.
It is. And that's how, yes, alchemy. That is right. It is alchemy that he does. And I would say that creating sacred space within yourself first.
Yeah.
Although the pyramids, when used close by in meditation, do help you access a meditative state a little more easily and longer, because we're bombarded by so much. And the satellites are a major part of this. People are starting to talk about that now, but you know, mold and candida in people and all this fungus stuff, all this EMF cell tower satellite stuff, and they're triangulating now. It's not, you know, it has been, but really to target individual people, precise, you know, longitude, latitudes, they can do this. And orgone can help at changing your frequency. We're putting on a different ring, a stone, can change your frequency a little bit just to help people with that also, you know. But
that's right. That's how, by the way, that's where like bracelets and necklaces and anklets came from. They weren't there for decoration, although they are decorative. They were there because they were concentrating, they were made out of the right materials, and they were concentrating. You had a hurt wrist, you would put the copper bracelet on, and it would concentrate the orgone down into your hurt wrist or your ankle or your, you know, wherever you put it. And so these things were all practical at the beginning. Now we've all forgotten what the whole reason for this jewelry really was.
Well, that's it. I did not know that. That is interesting. I love it even more. There you go. also in sacred space, like you mentioned, right angles, Patrick Flanagan came
Yeah.
out, and he used to sell attachments that would fit into the corners of your room. And I don't even know how to get those. So that's a good idea for somebody to make money on right now, and it needed and would be appreciated and helpful. And you could even make those pretty. So there you go. But that, you know, adobe houses are much more peaceful also, mud houses, right?
What I
you have wood house. They're coming out with hemp houses now. So this is interesting. It's very interesting ways to keep all this bombardment down. There's many ways to do it. People sage, they do toning, but having a pyramid there or an orgone, whatever orgone you have, you can interact with it, which in my opinion builds the field. The more you interact with, I tell people if they interact with the pyramid, I give them directions. If they ask, the stronger the orgone output is going to be. Yep. Isn't that interesting? Yep. But if you just leave it, it's fine. Just charge it every once in a while, clear it and charge it in the sun. Very simple, very simple. But creating sacred space in yourself would be, I just want to add this because I want to. The Essenes for me are that is the closest to the philosophy that feels innate in my cellular structure.
Yep.
So
big fan of myself.
Yeah, right. Because it's so similar to Native American in what we've learned, or I've learned being in the Southwest, that you are in a state of honoring. And when you're in a state of honoring and gratitude, you immediately raise your frequency. So that creates sacred space within you. Creating sacred space, one of my teachers would say, you know, people can't always create sacred space wherever they want, but she's a real, very strict about sacred temples, and those were on ley lines and lined up certain ways. But we can create sacred space within us and create a sacred resonance within our homes, you know, and it would be helpful for people because the higher your frequency, I now believe that with what's gone on in 2020 and people say there's no way to do anything about it, I would say in the words of Richard Bach, to limit the is a huge mistake, don't do it. So, you know, there might be a way to override some of the crazy things that foreign matter people have in their bodies now, possibly. We can't say that it wouldn't happen because DNA can be uplifted. When you create sacred space within yourself and you raise the frequency within yourself, it's not like a temperature where hot and cold even out. When you raise your frequency, everything around you comes up. When a master walks in the room, just because there's lower frequency people, he doesn't come down. The whole entire room goes up. Right. So with tools, and people can do this without tools, but it's nice to have a hammer when you need a hammer, you know? So with tools, because it's a massive assault upon us, we come up and we do create a new reality, and we do bring up everything around us. So that is a huge goal, and it's one we could all have.
You sent me a chart here. I want to put it up on the screen so you can explain it to us.
Please. Where did I put it? I have it here. Do you want me to hold it up?
Here we go. It's up on the screen.
This is a Bovis life force chart. And there was this French physicist in the 30s, Antoine Bovis. He created this because he was doing scale research around the Great Pyramids of Egypt. He wanted to determine relative levels beneficiary of chi. So he originally had an 18K, and it's been expanded on by dowsers everywhere, and it's very accurate. If you're clear, you know, and you know how to use a pendulum, because you being clear is going to give you the most accurate answers. You can see where something swings whether you state it or think it, to measure. In fact, I have some people that purchased some pyramids were studying with Maria Wheatley, and they found some negative energy in their homes, And she said, well, put up one of Michelle's pyramids over there, measure it first, put the pyramid, leave it, and then measure it again. And I got a wonderful email saying that he tried this and it changed the energy in his house from unhealthy to healthy energy just by leaving the pyramid there for, maybe 20, 30, 40 minutes. So interesting.
Yeah, Maria Wheatley's awesome. I want to get her on my show.
That can be done. No problem.
Good.
She is awesome. She's one of my teachers, and she is,
she's the real deal.
she would say about buildings, I learned from her that with these sacred temples, they have the cathedral, but then they have outside the cathedral, maybe a little cathedral or something else that's the real power that not everybody can go to. Very interesting. So it's kind of does the yin and the yang. There's two sources playing off each other. It's just fascinating. She would say, you ask the land, you ask the guardians, you ask the sacred temple for permission, which is in alignment with the Essene philosophy of honoring, and then you can proceed in whatever you want to do, and you will have a different experience, because just doing that, you've created a sacred experience by recognizing recognizing the soul of the land, the soul of the guardians, that they even exist. It completely changes an experience going somewhere.
No, yeah, her book, the book you sent me, it was really good, and I was really impressed. And you can even, this is sort of like, like when you do a pendulum over a map. I know this guy, he can find missing people by just putting a pendulum over a map, and he finds them for the police, right? And you're like, well, how does that work, right? That's because there's a morphogenetic field around the map that emulates the actual landscape of the map. So that's how he can do it, and it creates the same field. And when the pendulum vibrates, he knows he's got a hit.
Right.
So all these frequencies, they're all around us. I can tell you one thing. I lived in a big city until, well, just a little less than 3 years ago. And then I moved out to a place which National Geographic says is the quietest place on earth, and it is. And but there's no cell towers, there's no Wi-Fi, there's nothing. And it created this incredibly calming effect on me that I didn't know how agitated I was when I was living in the city from all the bombardment of all the frequencies. And so your contention is that these pyramids will help with that, right?
They will help. Orgone pyramids, and they're not all made the same, will help. It's one of the things that will help. Yes, silk, putting silk cloth over your TV or computer. It has to be natural fiber. That also helps.
Really?
Interesting, because things are coming through. Energy is coming through this. And I just learned that it's taking a infrared picture of our face every 5 seconds, which is interesting.
Really?
So I lived in New York City too. I was a photographer. That's where I trained myself to see, you start out and you want to do it like everybody else that you love, but you keep going and you learn your way. You learn all the craft. You learn the craft, and then you can mess up, and then you can find your path and your vision with stuff. And it was chaotic. I did not do well in New York City, but I loved the people back then. Everybody, to my old New York friends, I don't know what's happening over there. I can't hear that. But I have a good story for you in New York, and regarding symbols, because symbols can also create sacred space. Mandalas, people are building crystal grid patterns with intention. It's very powerful. And I make these plates also that, like you held up the plate, and that is I've been wanting to do mandalas since the early 2000s. So I started doing them. And the thing about the plates, you can put your bag of groceries on it for 10, 20 minutes too. Why not? I originally made it for people to put their food on there to reroute, which leads me into another thing, actually. When you clear frequency in food, DNA, fruit flies, they were I heard this in 2013 on Red Ice Radio. Remember them? I haven't been
Oh,
found
we
Red
be
Ice
gone
Radio
all
in a
the
while.
time.
And he was interviewing, I believe, Ken Rolla. And he was telling a story about how the geneticists were splicing genes into the fruit flies. But every 7th generation, the DNA would revert back because the divine is always wanting to come in, and it always will find a way to rooter back in no matter what. And fruit flies don't experience a lot of trauma. So trauma is like dense in our antennas for our DNA. So the more calm meditation, the more your DNA can be clearer, which is why I'm thinking maybe people could, override some interesting DNA experiments going on now. And I had an experience in New York. I went to a healing in 2001, 2002, and I had Ganesh. Ganesh was dancing on my head, and then I saw myself going through this like roller coaster of white screens, and I thought, this is so weird. What is this? I couldn't figure it out. Well, by the time I had gotten home, my eyes had changed color, and I was so freaked out that I had to go back to the bathroom like 25 times and call somebody that I knew that didn't believe in any of this stuff to meet them. To this day, they'll say, I don't know what that was, but your eyes changed color. And so I realized my DNA I got a blessing for that. They reverted back, but I got a blessing to see that your DNA, when clear, things happen, and there is a way to clear DNA. And then when I heard about the fruit fly, I thought, oh my God, divine source is always, it's never stopping not to come in. So, if we clear ourselves, and you can use pyramids and blessings, and so if you could just meet it, we would, have more experience. I love that story. That was a huge breakthrough for me in life. And then seeing how they constantly traumatize us, and that keeps us from clearing our DNA and undenting the antennas. And as I was saying, sacred symbols, and which you showed earlier, that's an extensive book. I've looked to find that book. It's very expensive to get that book. I can't get that book.
Can't deny that one.
Because I love symbols. And when I first moved to New York, this is a good story to show the power of symbols and creating something. February's in New York. Everybody knows they're terrible. It's gloomy, it's gray, it's frozen, and you step in deep, cold puddles that you didn't see, and it's a nightmare, and nobody's there. So I decided to paint my bathroom. I was 27 years old, and I started doing these symbols around the whole ledge, and I just let myself I don't know what I was doing. I was just doing things. I don't know what I was doing. So later on, about a year later, I noticed the floor would move. And I would think I was crazy. And I had noticed something would go on in the bathroom. I painted over everything. I wish I had photographed it, because some of those symbols had to do something. But people that would come over, I had a girlfriend at my apartment when I was traveling. She said, Michelle, the floor moved. I don't know what's going on, but the floor moved. So they ended up I just wonder sometimes, they ended up demolishing this building, and they built a school for autism, which is pretty interesting. But it completely changed whatever was created in 4 feet by 3 feet, I think created the trajectory for that. Do you know what I mean? It's just bizarre.
I do. Yeah, Weidner's first law is, if a picture is worth 1,000 words, a symbol is worth 1,000 pictures.
Yes, I would say yes, that it was interesting. So there's a lot of power in these symbols, and but use them lightly. And I would say people, it's not to be taken just to be messed with, because these are big energies. And right now at this time, there's a lot of weird things going on. It's not all love and light out there. It's my feeling that the frequencies are bringing in all kinds of, You called it on Facebook the entity. I would say there's many of them, but you know they're coming in. I've seen them with my eyes open. People that I work with or that are in the healing arts are seeing all kinds of things, and I believe that the frequencies layered in the cell phone towers and satellites are creating some kind of you know, when you create a bed like for mold or moss or whatever, it's the perfect environment that attracts this stuff. And 5G, I thought, might even be for them to actually take form. I don't know, but it just dawned on me, maybe, you know, so I was working my tail off to get these pyramids made because I was like, I got to do this for my future lives. You know, whatever's coming, it doesn't have to be that way, by the way. We can be positive, but whatever's coming, I want it to be nice when I reincarnate back here, you know, and I'm not giving up on this beautiful planet. We're made of her and we should really take care of her. I mean, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. We are her.
We are, and we have a force, that what I call the entity, which, and when I say the entity, it could be 100,000 fragments of it, but it seems to work in unison. That's why I call it the entity. Like when birds change direction, they all go in the same direction, same time. And also it seems to be working on a really long-term plan. So it couldn't be human because the plan's too long for a human life. But what this entity wants more than anything is for the human race to hate itself. And that's all it ever puts out, how bad we are. We're destroying the world. We're doing everything bad. We're bad. All we do is fight and war and all that. And I don't actually believe any of that at all. I don't believe any of it. I believe that, yes, there's pollution, but it's the distribution system. It's not what we're doing.
I agree. Given the choice, people would do the right thing. 95% of the population on this planet want to just good things for their kids, positive life experience. Not everybody is greedy. We're also being sold things that it's crazy. And then they blame us for it. You're absolutely right. It's like a gaslighting psyop on our psyche, and it's all coming off of a black screen. Let's just keep that in mind.
And you know, in journalism, the line is, if it bleeds, it leads, right? So in television, if there's a car accident, that's the first thing you're going to see. You're not going to see, you know, the baby that was birthed down the street. They're not going to show you that. They're going to show you the car accident, the crimes, the murder, anything to inculcate this idea that we're really, really bad. And this is something that we really have to fight against, because we're not. We're inherently actually really good. And we're propagandized to think that we're bad. And then when you have a bad attitude about yourself, then the world begins deteriorating because you don't care about the world anymore. So that's one of my big pet peeves. By the way, I just want to say one thing. Pat Flanagan was a really good friend of mine. He wrote the book on pyramids, and he died recently. And I just wanted to send out, you know, how sad I am about his passing. He was a good friend of mine, and we had a really special friendship, and I really miss him. And I wondered why he quit emailing me from Ecuador, where he moved, and but now I know. Also, another thing you do with these things, I know it sounds funny, but I put it up on my pineal gland, right above my pineal gland when I meditate. And
I do that when I get headaches. I do that, and it helps sometimes with headaches, because
I can actually feel my pineal gland tingling when I do it after about 10 minutes. Also, another thing I'll show you, it's not going to happen, but if I place this, your pyramid on here, and I let it sit for about 20 minutes, I have trouble pulling it off. It creates a magnetic field. I don't know if it's the BBs and something metal in here, but it creates a magnetic field. Not a big one, but a slight one. It's kind of funny.
That is, I don't know why that is. Maybe you're right. I didn't, sometimes well, not on wood surfaces, glass, sometimes they'll stick, but this does actually, base to body, create a vortex space so your body can heal itself.
That's right.
Because our bodies are always wanting to move towards our own healing. And there's something about a pyramid, by the way. So I did get to go to Egypt before Nutville happened. And like you, but in the Queen's Chamber, very few of us were in there at the time. All these faces, it was chaotic energy. I actually didn't feel anything in the King's Chamber. Other people did, but I did not. But outside of the pyramid, standing, I could barely stand up next to the outside of the pyramid. It was so massive, the energy. So I know everyone wants to say it's just coming out the top. I wasn't up there, but for me, the outsides, you know, I just apply my experience to things, and I was standing like this, you know, it was huge.
Yep. Yeah, I had a tremendously psychic experience at the Great Pyramid, and one I'll probably never forget or get over. And but all of the pyramids that I visited I had this kind of weird feeling about. But now we know from Christopher Dunn's work that in fact the Great Pyramid is a plasma generator. And since I believe that prana, chi, orgone are actually plasma, it's an electromagnetic field that surrounds all living objects. And if you know how to build an object, you can make it so it surrounds that too. And it's a higher dimensional field. It's shaped like a donut, and it flows through you. Your spine is the magnet for this thing. And that's why I stick it on the top. You stick it on the top because it flows right down through the spinal area and goes all the way out the bottom, and then creates a field around it and comes back in, and it just enhances that field, which is health, essentially. Mm-hmm. Not just physical, but mental too.
I mean, people make pendants, and I make some pendants. I prefer the pyramids. But maybe I'm sensitive. When you first get the pyramids, that you might feel them stronger, and then you acclimatize. Yeah. And then you don't kind of notice as much, but yep. That's just called, you know, bringing yourself up to the level. And
when I brought this baby in the house, oh my God.
That's a good one.
Cats were running around.
That's a good one. But see, you probably even feel it more strongly because you live in such a peaceful place. It doesn't have to take on the towers and the other things just to bring you to normal. So it's super amplified, which is awesome.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, I had the one regression of my life. I was just checking it out. I wanted to refer, somebody was looking for a regressionist in the family, and I thought I better do one before I refer anyone. And I did have a vision. I think this was 2015. I had to be on a different planet. It was all blue, but there was a giant pyramid, but it was not a Giza. It was a super steep pyramid. It was like purple blue city. And there was a massive crystal ball inside of it. It was opaque though. So there is something about putting crystals inside the pyramid, because my impression in this regression was that was everything to this city. It powered the city. It was the spiritual place. It was the protection of the city. It was the center of everything. And I thought it was just a surprise.
That's right. That. So what the forces is all of what you just said. It's a spiritual force. It's a protective force. It's a vitality source. It's the source of life, and we are bereft of it in our society, which is why we're going mentally ill. That's what I think.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know if everybody should live in a pyramid. I do think there's something to going in and then coming out, but having little pyramids or different orgone or wind chimes change the energy, pets change the energy. You know, definitely. Oils change the energy. People are going to find that these essential oils are very helpful with the nano stuff, and it definitely helps with the chems and other things. There are people working on this now. There's stuff with one of my premier wizard doctor has found that there's some essential oils that help with the shedding, people exposed to that. Right. I'm thinking with that, personally, I was woken up in the middle of the night about 2 weeks ago when a male voice yelled at me, prayer is the cure for COVID. And I'm not known for prayer. I'll do meditations. I guess they're prayers. Anything sacred or a blessing or a wish or a invocation could be a prayer. And I'm wondering if we are going to come up with something that overrides. Maybe you can't take it out, but all software can be overridden. Just saying. And raising your frequency may be just the thing. That may be, I actually think it is the thing. I think that no matter what happens to me in my life, when I run up against all this hard stuff we're facing, I'm making these diligently. I try and be a good person. I'm listening to all the things, but it always comes back to, it only matters that I am raising my frequency in this life, that I am doing my best and raising my frequency. Ultimately, that is, I think, everyone's mission. We're all looking for our mission. You are your mission. If you make yourself great, you will know exactly what to do.
That's exactly right. And I think you're right. I think you can, in football, they have a play called the end run, where the smallest guy on the team takes the ball because he's so fast, and he runs around all the big guys, right? So they can't catch him. But he never touches any of them. And that's kind of what you're describing here, is that frequency could cause you to run around some of these obstacles that we're facing that are, going to bring us down, to be honest with you. Oh, by the way, also food is an important way to bring your frequency up. Very important to have a high alkaline diet.
Yes, I agree. All these things are great. And you're right. If you make your home your peaceful rest place, and that would, to me, include unplugging the Wi-Fi or getting a big piece of shungite or putting a pyramid in front of your computer. My shop is, I have stores and I'm online. So my livelihood right now, I could adjust, is now based online. So I'll put silk over the computer. I'll put a
Great advice.
Pyramid in front of it. I notice I have pyramids here, so I'm sitting up straight. But if I don't have one, if I'm in a space, I notice that my whole heart chakra starts to collapse from the frequencies coming off of this. And I even have the blue thing that you stick on there, the little film that helps with for your eyes. The doctors are seeing the worst things coming in, aside from all the nonsense, was liver failure, liver disease, which people are missing what tattoos do. And even if you remove them, you really have to constantly, I'm just going to say this to everybody, your gallbladder and your liver, if you're tattooed, you need to do cleanses often. And the screens for your eyes, protect your eyes. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're right. And there's on Amazon, you can buy these yellow glasses. So when you're looking at your computer, you're getting this really intense blue light that's coming at you, and you need to. I would be wearing them, but I look goofy in them on camera. But I do it when I'm not on camera, and wear them when you're looking into your screen, because it offsets that damage that's coming from the screen. This is what we have to do.
I wonder if now, if it's that infrared blast that's been coming every 5 seconds that's creating that, we learn stuff. I thought, it's just never ending. What? Are you kidding me? This too? That's what so sometimes everybody just has to chill out. We're on overdrive. So take your pyramid, put it on your head, drink a nice organic glass of lemonade with cane sugar, and put your feet in the dirt, for sure.
Yes, very good advice. Absolutely great advice.
Don't mess with things you don't know. We all want to learn about all these, not to be a Debbie Downer, everybody with the UFO stuff, and everyone wants contact and this and that, I can't stress this enough. You don't really know who's coming in. I read the Carlos Castaneda books in my early 20s, and I was out of my league. These things are real, and it will bring things into your life. So if you don't have a trusted teacher, tread lightly in any of these mystical traditions, because it's amplified. You're going to have a deeper expression of what's coming through.
Totally agree with that. And you got to be really careful and choose your master carefully, because they will take advantage of you. And you have to be careful on that. And then there's, of course, the um, the fakes, you know, the ones that act like they're spiritual, but behind the scenes are anything but. We've both had our experiences with those kinds of people. Yeah, so listen, Michelle, I'm really happy to have you on my show. I've been trying to do this now for like 3 months. We finally did it. And I'm going to put the link to Light the Light on the description. And I just want to personally thank you for just all the beautiful things that you're bringing into the world. And it's, you know, you're truly an artist. You really are. You're a spiritual artist.
Well, thank you, Jay. Coming from you, I hold you in such high regard for the last 15 years, and it just means a lot. I do my best, and I'm very humbled, and thank you. I do try. I want
Well,
the world to be a better place, so
yeah,
we can all
that's
do it
exactly
together.
what this show is about, is trying to make the world a better place. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer either. So I just want to bring nice things to the world, and you bring a lot of nice stuff to the world, and I want to thank you. And everybody, put these in your house. Put them next to your infant child when they're sleeping. Put them in your garden. Put them on the windowsills. Every windowsill has a pyramid on it. So when the light comes in, it's just beautiful. So I want to thank you, Michelle Hood from Lite the Light Pyramid. And I want to thank you guys for watching. I promise I'll be delivering more content here soon. Maybe I could interview Maria Wheatley. That'd be great. And thank you for watching. I'm Jay Weidner, and hit subscribe and like and all that other stuff. And I will be back.